All right, hello everybody. We are today solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So the first thing I'd like to remind you of is that this is a perfect square trinomial because when we factor it, it factors, well, it's x squared plus 10x plus 25, so it factors as x plus 5 times x plus 5 or x plus 5 squared. Now we call that a perfect square really because if this was a square and the length was x plus 5 and the width was x plus 5, then when we found the area, we would be multiplying x plus 5 times x plus 5, and when we FOIL that out, we would get x squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay, so when you solve a quadratic equation by completing the square, we are factoring and then taking the square root of both sides. So I would like to start with an easy one, such as this. X squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. Now this is already a perfect square trinomial, so basically we could factor this and get x plus 3 squared is equal to 0. Okay, when we take the square root of both sides, we get just x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 0, but there's no such thing as a negative 0, so this is just x plus 3 equals 0. We subtract 3 for both sides, and we get x is equal to negative 3. We can check our work and substitute this negative 3 into the original equation, and we get negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 9 equals 0, and we would see that negative 3 squared is 9. 6 times negative 3 is minus 18 plus 9 is equal to 0, and this works. 0 is equal to 0. So we just have one solution, x is equal to negative 3. Okay, it gets a little bit harder. Sometimes we'll have to solve an equation such as this, like x squared minus 16x is equal to, say, negative 15. Now, this is not a perfect square trinomial. This isn't even a trinomial over here. But our main goal is we're going to add something to both sides of the equation to make this a trinomial that will factor into a perfect square. Okay, this one up here was a perfect square because we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. Basically, half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. Now, if this is a perfect square trinomial, that pattern's always going to be true. We go back to this one. Half of 10 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. So you're looking at the b term, the linear term, dividing it by 2, and squaring it. So negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 squared is 64. So what I want is I want to add 64 to each side of this equation. And I'm going to have x squared minus 16x plus 64 is equal to, well, 64 minus 15. And if you got to go off to the side of your page, that's fine. You have to borrow. 14 minus 5 is 9. 5 minus 1 is 4. X squared minus 16x plus 64 is equal to 49. Now what we have is a perfect square trinomial. You are going to factor this and get x minus 8 times x minus 8, or just x minus 8 squared, is equal to 49. And when we take the square root of both sides, we get x minus 8 is equal to, Well, the square root of 49 could be a positive 7 or a negative 7, plus or minus 7. Okay. Once you get here, I do want you to write this out separately, and we'd have two different answers. We're going to write x minus 8 could be equal to 7, or x minus 8 could be equal to negative 7. And you solve both equations. Add 8 to both sides. You'll get x is equal to 15. Add 8 to both sides. You get x is equal to positive 1. And so I want both answers. X is equal to 15. X is equal to 1. Okay. All right. Have a nice day, folks. Enjoy.